Okay, so we'll quickly summarize what we did last time. Let me see. Today we are starting from 16th chapter, Shloka 25. We are supposed to start, and last time we did from the beginning of the 16th chapter. So what was the 16th chapter first part about? Well, in the previous chapter we heard how the Chitraketu's son died being poisoned by envious queens. And so at the beginning of this chapter, when everybody is completely drowned in lamentation, and even the queens who were pretending to lament, Narada Muni and Angira Muni, they appear there. And then Narada Muni, he brings the dead son back to life. Or, as Vishnu Chakra Thakur describes, he actually speaks to the mouth of a child. In either case, that body came back to life and started speaking. And that jiva questions the belief system of the Chitraketu and everybody else. And he asked them, in which birth are you my parents? No one is actually permanently related. All these relationships and feelings of possessiveness are completely temporary. And in this way, he awakens the intelligence, spiritual intelligence of Chitraketu and others present there. And then there's described that there was a child's funeral rites performed by the king, and the queens who poisoned the child, they did atonement, they atoned for the grievous sin. And then Narada is using opportunity to continue with instructing King Chitraketu. After he heard his dead son speaking, now Narada Muni takes over and starts giving first Shiksha and then the mantra or Diksha. And so from 18th shloka till 25, Narada instructs King Chitraketu. Basically, he's giving him Sambandha Gyan, the knowledge of the relationship and position of the soul in the material world and relationship with the Lord. So he's describing, Chatur Yoga, differences between the Lord and the Jiva, features of the Lord like Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. And then he gives him the mantra. So I'll just share my screen and we will continue the reading. Share screen. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narana Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottam Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudirait Nashta Praisha Bhagavati Bhagavati Seva Bhagavati Uttavashloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So we continue with the mantra that is given by Narada Muni to Chitraketu, and that's technically called Diksha. What in ISKCON we call Diksha, sometimes we call first initiation Diksha, but technically speaking, when you get the Krishna mantra, that's called Diksha, or second initiation, or Brahman initiation, what we call in ISKCON. When you get Krishna mantra and the other Gayatri mantras, technically that's called Diksha. So here, Chitraketu gets different mantra, mantra of Lord Sankarshan. Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaya Mahanubhavaya Mahavibhuti Pataye Sakala Satvata Parivrida Nikrakara Kamala Kudma Kudmalo Palalita Charanara Vinda Yugala Parama Parameshtin Namaste. It's a little longer than our 18-syllable Krishna mantra and other Gayatri mantras we have. O Transcendental Lord, who are situated in the topmost planet of the spiritual world. Your 2 lotus feet are always massaged by a multitude of the best devotees with their lotus bud hands. You're the Supreme Personality of Godhead, complete in 6 opulences. You're the Supreme Person mentioned in the Purusha Sukta prayers. You're the most perfect, self-realized, master of all mystic power. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is said that absolute truth is one, but is manifested in different features as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The previous verses describe the Brahman and Paramatma features of the Absolute Truth. Now this prayer is offered in Bhakti Yoga to the Absolute Supreme Person. The words used in this regard are Sakala Sattvata Parivriddha. The word Sattvata means devotees, and Sakala means all together. Devotees who also have lotus feet serve the lotus feet of the Lord with their lotus hands. The devotees may sometimes not be competent to serve the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore the Lord is addressed as Parama Parameshtin. He is the Supreme Person, yet he is very kind to the devotees. No one is competent to serve the Lord, but even if devotee is not competent, the merciful Lord accepts the humble attempt of the devotee. Vishnu Chakra Thakur, having spoken of the Lord giving knowledge, now the mantra speaks of the Lord giving rasa. O Lord with the lotus feet, which are massaged with affection by the bud-like lotus hands of groups of excellent devotees. The hint is, please establish me also in the service of massaging your feet. But you're very low. How can I engage you in such a high service? But you're the supreme among supreme lords. You are able to do what others cannot do. Parama Parameshti. So it's naturally for a devotee of the Lord to feel unqualified to render direct service to the Lord. But still, devotee has a hope because the Lord is supremely merciful. So even if I'm very fallen, still he can make me qualified for his service and engage me in his service. So if devotee has this attitude, the Lord will definitely accept him by engaging him first in the service of his servants and then in his service also. Although we aspire to become dasa, dasa, anudasa, servant of the servant of the servant, never to become a direct servant of the Lord. Shri Sukha Vacha Bhakta Yaitam Prapanaya Vidhyam Adishya Narada Yaya Angirasa Sakam Dhama Swayambhuvam Prabhu. Shishadeva Goswami continued, Narada, having become the spiritual master of Chitraketu, instructed him fully in this prayer because Chitraketu was fully surrendered. O King Parikshit, Narada then left with the great sage Angira for the topmost planet known as Brahma Loka. When Angira had first come to visit King Chitraketu, he did not bring Narada with him. However, after the death of Chitraketu's son, Angira brought Narada to instruct King Chitraketu about Bhakti Yoga. The difference was that in the beginning, Chitraketu was not in a temperament of renunciation, but after the death of his son, when he was overwhelmed by his great plight, he was awakened to the platform of renunciation by instructions regarding the falsity of this material world and material possessions. It is only at this stage that Bhakti Yoga can be instructed. As long as one is attached to material enjoyment, Bhakti Yoga cannot be understood. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoga Ishvarya Prasaktanam Taya Paharita Chetasam Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Samhadavana Vidhiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. As long as one is very much attached to material enjoyment, one cannot concentrate his mind on the subject matter of devotional service. So this is very important point, because you may ask, why not everybody is becoming a devotee? You know, we distributed millions and millions of books, Srila Prabhupada's books, all over the world. So many people were exposed, you know, to devotional service, but still, how many of them took it seriously and became devotees, practicing devotees? Not many. Why? Because most of the people, they still, you know, have an illusion that they can be happy in this material world. Their desire for material enjoyment is still very, very strong. So only those who have come in their evolution of the soul to the point of realization that I had enough of this sense gratification, I had enough of trying to be happy here, only they are good candidates for being instructed about the spiritual life and the bhakti. Others, they don't want. They want to be happy here. They want to enjoy here. So there is no point of trying to instruct him, because they will not accept your instructions. Of course, we still try. We give them a chance. We offer them a book, and then it's up to them. And 1 in 1,000 or more, he will be the soul who is searching. And then he will be open and receptive. And also you can wonder why you didn't become a devotee, and at the time you thought you could become, or why you became a devotee only at the time when it was destined for you to become. Because maybe in the past, when somebody was very young, still he was not so serious. Later he had to go through something to live out something, to come to the realization, to some realizations, and then became receptive and open. Like here, Chitraketu, previously, when he still was in hope that he can be happy by having a son, Narada Muni couldn't have helped him. Even if he came, his instructions would not give the same results. But now, when he became detached, he became a good candidate for being instructed and becoming a devotee. So the Krishna consciousness movement is progressing successfully in the Western countries at the present moment, because the youth in the West have reached the stage of vairagya, or renunciation. They are practically disgusted with material pleasure from material sources. And this has resulted in a population of hippies throughout the Western countries. Now, if these young people are instructed about Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness, the instructions will certainly be effective. So in the 60s, the hippie movement was a rejection of contemporary Western society of sense gratification. The hippies, they were frustrated because they realized they are not happy. So they took up the counterculture, the hippie culture, and explored, LSD, different sort of drugs, different sort of spiritual processes. So it was very good time for Prabhupada to come to America at that time. If he came before that stage, maybe Krishna consciousness would not spread as it spread now. So it had to be right moment. The the young population had to be open for it. I mean, even previously, who was it, Bon Maharaj and another Gaudiya Math sannyasi, they came to London before the Second World War, and they tried to do some preaching, but nothing really happened. Nothing really happened. And even in the beginning of the century, there was a Gaudiya Vaishnava who came to America, and he initiated a few people here and there, but Krishna consciousness never spread. So it had to be right moment, and of course the right person, and Prabhupada was that right person, empowered Shaktavesh avatar of the Lord. So as soon as Chitraketu understood the philosophy of Vairagya Vidya, the knowledge of renunciation, he could understand the process of Bhakti Yoga. In this regard, Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has said, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. Vairagya Vidya and Bhakti Yoga are parallel lines. So renunciation and the knowledge parallel to devotional service. This is the prayer of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga, Shishartam Ekash Purusha Purana, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shariradhari Yas Tam Krimpa Buddhi Maham Prapadye. I surrender to you who came to give, Vairagya Vidya and your own Bhakti Yoga, your own devotional service, and your devotional mercy. One is essential for understanding the other. It is also said, Bhakti Pareshanu Bhavo Viraktir Anyatra Cha. What is this? Bhakti Pareshanu Bhavo? Bhakti means bhakti or devotional service unto the Lord, unto the Supreme Lord, Para Isha. And then Anubhava means direct perception, Virakti is detachment. Anyatra Chaisha Trika Ekakala. So all these three things, devotional service, direct perception of the Lord, and detachment, they become manifest in one who is Prapadya Manasya, who surrenders, who takes the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And then its comparison is given the same way as the hunger, in the same way as one who eats. For him, three things occur simultaneously. What is it? Tushti, satisfaction. He becomes satisfied, then the body becomes nourishment or pushti, and then his hunger also gets eradicated by eating. So similarly, devotional service, direct perception of the Lord, and detachment become directly manifest in one who takes shelter of the Lord. So advancement in devotional service of Krishna consciousness is characterized by increasing renunciation of material enjoyment. Narada Muni is the father of devotional service, and therefore, just to bestow causeless mercy upon King Chitraketu, Angira brought Narada Muni to instruct the king. These instructions were extremely effective. Anyone who follows in the footsteps of Narada Muni is certainly a pure devotee. Yeah, he's so effective that he made his disciple self-realized in just 7 days. So you can imagine how effective Narada Muni as a preacher is. Of course, he also finds very qualified disciples. Chitraketu was, I guess, a little more qualified than hippies in America. So Narada gave one Etam, great knowledge, the mantra, which contained many important statements. Angira was the person who bestowed Chitraketu, his son. Thus previously it was said Angira arrived with Narada. Now it is said Narada left with Angira. This indicates the importance of Narada because he gave Chitraketu the mantra. Shukadev addresses the king as master to indicate that he is very capable of understanding the meaning of these teachings. Yeah, Parikshit is Prabhu. I mean, so Shukdev wants to indicate that he is very intelligent. Chitraketu stutham vidyam yathanar. Yes, Prabhu.
In the purport, Prabhupada said, yeah, he said that they are practically disgusted with material pleasure from material sources. So, don't you think the situation now is worse than what it was 50 years ago when Prabhupada went there? So, the question arises, why are they not disgusted now? They were disgusted at that time. So, is it just that is the factor, or there was some additional factor also? Because now they are not taking up to Krishna consciousness as they were taking up at that time. So, if the situation is more disgusting now than previously, then how do we understand it?
Yeah, definitely. The Kali Yuga in the last 50 years progressed very much, and the situation is much more detrimental and disgusting than the things that are happening nowadays, especially in the Western world and especially in America. But I'm not saying that they're not disgusted. There are still a lot of people who are disgusted, but they might not be hippies now. Now it manifests in some other forms, different sort of completely lost people, completely, having no orientation. So why all these unfortunate, disgusted people who are there, they're still there, like they were in 60s. So why they're not becoming devotees? Well, I would argue that it's not because they are not discussed as they were in the 60s, but because we are not that potent in our preaching as we were in the 60s. Then Prabhupada was present, and this is very, very significant factor. And everybody else, all the young devotees who joined there, they were completely invigorated, enthusiastic due to Prabhupada's pure devotion. And now we don't have such a person, Acharya of Prabhupada's stature, who could actually attract all these unfortunate, unhappy people who are still there. So our preaching doesn't have the same potency as it had it when the Prabhupada was personally present, which is normal to be expected. So that's why the results are not the same. We don't have many people joining because our preaching is not pure, is not potent as it used to be, and it's not so selfless. And in Prabhupada's times, his early disciples, they were ready to sacrifice everything to travel anywhere in the world and completely surrender to fulfill Prabhupada's instruction and preach. Who is doing this nowadays? If somebody would be doing it, people would be joining. But because we are not doing it, then people are not joining so much. Only people from Indian background who are joining basically just on the cultural basis, because it's their culture. But not many Americans are joining. Some here and there, few. So I don't know if this is the complete answer, but yeah, this is my opinion, that just because our preaching is not that potent and we are not that fired up and enthusiastic as devotees were in the 60s and 70s, that's why the effect is not there, that many people are joining. But there were phases also in ISKCON history when also many people joined because devotees were so fired up, enthusiastic for preaching. I remember in the 90s in my place in Europe, in Southeast Europe, there was also, early phase of devotees there. And at that time it was Harikesh who very heavily preached, the book distribution, and everybody was on fire, and millions of books were distributed, and the temple was, full, hundreds of people were in the temple, and everything was on fire. And it was after Prabhupada, just because, the leader at that time, he was also so enthusiastic and inspiring others. So if we would have such a leader who would be, so empowered, that would happen again and can happen anytime. Just somebody has, to surrender and become so inspiring to move others, to motivate others, and then things will start rolling on again. So sooner or later, hopefully it will happen. Somehow ISKCON came into some phase of where everybody is just laid back. It's just but it's natural also, it became a congregational movement. Not many people live anymore in the temple. And congregation, naturally, they have their own lives and they, are much slower to take up and practice. And, they have to work. They have no time for preaching. So I don't know. What do you think, Prangosram Prabhu? Do you have any thoughts on this?
I think maybe you're right. Yeah. But as you said, that was enthusiasm, but you also mentioned the other point of purity.
Yeah,
So
purity.
obviously, the people following Prabhupada probably are not as pure as him. I mean, I'm not making an allegation. I'm just saying, guessing maybe, because you said purity also is an important factor.
It is, yeah. Purity is a force, and everybody was attracted by Prabhupada, inspired by Prabhupada, and it was just amazing. Now we don't have such a powerful leader, such a spiritually pure leader, not only charismatic, but even charismatic leaders are missing nowadays. I mean, Harikish maybe was also not very pure, completely pure, but he was charismatic in those days, in 80s and 90s, until he left. And people were inspired by him. And I remember, he had, crew of brahmacharis wanting to, distribute thousands of books, going here and there. They were motivated somehow or other. They were motivated. So we need somebody who can motivate people and inspire them. And unfortunately now congregational sort of preaching and although different sort of preaching is there, it's not the same. The preaching also changed. The main point of the preaching now is not go out and make the word. It's something else, retreats, japa retreat, this, that, so many things are there, and which is natural for the development of society.
But it's also perhaps
Yeah.
true that during that time in the 60s and 70s that the counterculture was very strong. And there was also a very strong lean towards Eastern philosophies and experimentation and flower power and everything else. So that had probably an automatic attraction towards what Prabhupada was. Not automatic, that's the wrong word. Prabhupada's purity was, of course, the force, but there was a lot of experimentation going on with Eastern philosophies at the time. So I guess that may have also helped accelerate the propagation of the movement at the time.
Yes, Prabhu, I agree. It was the right moment when Prabhupada
Vietnam
came.
also played some kind of role in the more youngsters were against the government that they were being forced to.
Yeah, there was a very, very big counterculture at the time. Very, very big, strong counterculture, anti-authority, anti to the government, everything else. So that kind of, there was a big rebellion nature in youth at the time, where Prabhupada came and caught that spirit to say, look, you're fed up with the material world, but here's a spiritual world. So I think it was the Krishna's arrangements, right time, right place for Prabhupada.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, very, very good observation, Prabhu. Thank you. But yeah, nowadays, I think the Eastern sort of philosophies are still, very much popular. Actually, they became spread all over the world. So many people now, practice this sort of meditation. Buddhism, vegetarianism, and veganism became also very much popular, much more than it was in 60s. So in one sense, the society is even more receptive. Just we don't have that force and purity to do some stronger impact. But hopefully,
one of the reasons for that, Prabhuji, is that I feel these new movements or whatever, they have got force because they have piggybacked on Hare Krishna movement.
yeah,
Taking advantage of the Hare Krishna movement, they have probably become more popular or whatever.
Yeah, we were the first one actually to open this wave of Eastern philosophy. I think Maharishi came a little later or at the same time, basically, with TM, and then so many others, yogis, gurus, they all came and spread their doctrines. Okay, let us continue for the next. Chitraketus tutam vidyam yatha narada bhashitam darayam asa saptaham abbaksha susamahitaha. Fasting and drinking only water, Chitraketu for 1 week continuously chanted with great care and attention the mantra given by Narada Muni. So why he was fasting? Because he was controlling his senses. So the fasting helps one control the senses and the mind. And then he absorbed his mind in what? He absorbed it in the mantra, which is addressing the Lord. So basically his mind became completely absorbed in the Lord. That's why he achieved great success so quickly, because he completely absorbed his mind in the Lord by chanting this mantra. And fasting helped him in that. You can try, meditating or chanting after you fill your belly, after it's more difficult. It's definitely more difficult than when your stomach is empty and the mind is clear. Tata saptaratrante vidyaya dara manaya vidya dhara dipatyamcha lebe pratihatam nripa. O King Parikshit, after only 1 week of repeatedly practicing the mantra received from the spiritual master, Chitraketu achieved the rule of the planet or the Vidyadharas as intermediate product of his spiritual advancement in knowledge. If a devotee, after being initiated, adheres rigidly to the instructions of the spiritual master, he is naturally endowed with the material opulences of Vidyadhara, Adipatyam, and similar posts as byproducts. A devotee need not practice yoga, karma, or jnana to achieve a successful result. Devotional service alone is competent to award a devotee all material power. A pure devotee, however, is never attached to material power, although he gets it very easily without personal endeavor. Chitraketu received this side benefit of his devotional service, which he rigidly performed in accordance with the instructions of Narada. When you practice Ashtanga Yoga also on the way of attaining Samadhi, which is the goal, the yogi, he gets some siddhis, but these siddhis are considered by Patanjali Muni and other yoga Shastra experts as the distraction, So similarly, the opulences the devotee might gain can also be distraction. And sometimes if the Krishna is really, caring for the devotee, he may not give him, even if naturally he would deserve them by his spiritual progress. I've witnessed quite a few examples of, of devotees who were kind of very staunch preachers. And then something happened, for example, he got inheritance and he went back just a little bit back home. And then basically he blooped, he fell down with the old girlfriend and went back to the old habits just because he got some money. Previously, he didn't have money and he was engaged in preaching. So the opulence would be dangerous. So Krishna might protect us or might test us. Okay, next, 29. Tata katipaya hobir vidya yeda manogati jagama deva devasya Sheshasya Charanantikam. Thereafter, within a very few days, by the influence of the mantra that Chitraketu had practiced, his mind became increasingly enlightened in spiritual progress, and he attained shelter at the lotus feet of Anantadev. So it was the mantra, the power of the mantra that enlightened his mind, that made his mind absorbed in the Lord. Similarly, Dhruva Maharaj also completely controlled his mind, and the whole universe was trembling of his intense concentration. A devotee's ultimate achievement is to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in any one of the planets in the spiritual sky. As a result of rigid execution of devotional service, a devotee receives all material opulences if these are required. Otherwise, the devotee is not interested in material opulences, nor does the Supreme Lord award them. You may ask, Prabhupada, he was a pure devotee, and he tried to become rich. He had some business before he came, to America in his Grihastha days. And even he mentions once that according to one astrologer, he was supposed to become one of the richest men in India. So he tried, but then all his business adventures, all his business projects failed. And in the end, he came to America with only 40 rupees. So why Krishna didn't let him become rich, and as a rich man spread Krishna consciousness? Because he could have utilized his millions that he could have earned to spread Krishna consciousness. No, but Krishna let him spread Krishna consciousness as a poor man. Any idea why this happened like this? Why Krishna didn't let Prabhupada get rich?
I think
because when someone is rich, he will be very proud.
Okay, he will be very proud. That could be one answer. But let's see,
I was
Prabhupada.
thinking that maybe Prabhupada will be glorified more because he has done it with all adverse circumstances.
Yes, this is also true. I would also say that if Prabhupada, spread Krishna consciousness as a rich man, then all of us in the future would say, well, I'm not rich. Only rich people could preach and spread Krishna consciousness. So Krishna wanted to give example. The only surrendered, pure soul can do these things, not the one who has material opulence or money. Yeah, if you had a rich man spread, Krishna consciousness, yeah, we could just say, oh, this is only for rich people. It's not for me.
It's also a disqualification, Prabhu, isn't it? Too much opulence and wealth is also a disqualification for spiritual development.
Correct, yes. Okay, let us continue. When a devotee is actually engaged in devotional service of the Lord, his apparently material opulences are not material, they are spiritual. For example, a devotee spends money to construct a beautiful and costly temple. The construction is not material, but spiritual. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagya Muchate. A devotee's mind is never diverted to the material side of the temple. The bricks, stone, and wood used in the construction of the temple are spiritual, just as the deity, although made of a stone, is not a stone, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So pure devotee, he sees everything as spiritual and he utilizes everything in Krishna's service because he has such a vision. But if somebody is not on that level, his mind could be diverted. So we have seen in a history, for example, of Gaudiya Math, when they built big Bhagavata Vicara in Calcutta, residents, they start fighting about the rooms, who will occupy which room. And Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, he was very much disgusted and he wanted to sell the marble and the temple and to print books. So it depends what is the level of advancement, whether one will be able to properly utilize the opulence given or not. So the more one advances in spiritual consciousness, the more he can understand the elements of devotional service. Nothing in devotional service is material, everything is spiritual. Consequently, a devotee is awarded so-called material opulence for spiritual advancement. This opulence is an aid to help the devotee advance toward the spiritual kingdom. Thus, Maharaj Chitraketu remained in material opulence as a Vidyadhara Pati, master of the Vidyadharas, and by executing devotional service, he became perfect within a very few days and returned home back to Godhead, taking shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Shesha Ananta. A Karna's material opulence and devotee's material opulence are not on the same level. Srila Madhvacharya comments in this way: Anyantaryam minam vishnum upasyanya samipagaha bhaved yogyat taya tasya padam va prapnuyan nara. By worshipping Lord Vishnu, one can get whatever he desires. But a pure devotee never asks Lord Vishnu for any material profit. Instead, he serves Lord Vishnu without material desires and is therefore ultimately transferred to the spiritual kingdom. In this regard, Srila Bhagavata comments, Yatheshta Gatir Ithyartha. By worshipping Vishnu, a devotee can get whatever he likes. Maharaj Chitraketu wanted only to return home back to Godhead, and therefore he achieved success in that way. So we have that famous verse, Akama Sarva Kamova. So even if you are Sakhama, you desire to enjoy in this verse, it's still proper to approach Krishna or Vishnu and worship him, not the demigods, or not to try to achieve these opulences yourself. No, even if you're full of material desires, just worship the Lord and your desires will be ultimately fulfilled. And Dhruva Maharaj's example, he wanted kingdom, and in the end he got something much, much more worthy. With the kingdom, of course. Mrinala Goram Chittivasa Samspurat Kirita Kiyura Katitra Kankanam Prasana Vaktraruna Lochanam Vritam Tadarsha Siddheshwara Mandalai Prabhum. Upon reaching the shelter of Lord Shesha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Chitraketu saw that he was as white as the white fibers of a lotus flower. He was dressed in bluish garments and adorned with a brilliantly glittering helmet, armlets, belt, and bangles. His face was smiling and his eyes were reddish. He was surrounded by such exalted, liberated persons as Sanat Kumar. Tad darshanad vasta samasta kilbisha swasta malanta karano bhyayan muni pravrida bhaktya pranaya shrulochana prakrishta romanamad adipurusham. As soon as Maharaj Chitraketu saw the Supreme Lord, he was cleansed of all material contamination and situated in his original Krishna consciousness, being completely purified. He became silent and grave, and because of love for the Lord, tears fell from his eyes and his hair stood on end. With great devotion and love, he offered his respectful obeisances unto the original personality of Godhead. The word Tadarshana Dvasta Samasta Kilbisha is very important in this verse. If one regularly sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the temple, one will gradually be disinfected of all material desires simply by visiting the temple and seeing the deity. When one is freed from all the results of simple activities, one will be purified, and with a healthy mind, completely cleansed, he will increasingly make progress in Krishna consciousness. So this is the benefit of having darshan of the deity form of the Lord. Gradually we become cleansed. And then at the level of prema, we have direct darshan of the Lord, like Chitraketu here has direct darshan. It's a vastu siddhi. He achieved direct audience of the Lord. And before that opportunity, we have a deity in the temple, which is not different, and it's completely spiritual form. Sa uttama shloka padabja vistaram premashuleshar upa mehayan moho premo paruda kilavarna nirgamo naiva shakatam prasamiditum chiram. With tears of love and affection, Chitraketu repeatedly moistened the resting place of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Because his voice was choked in ecstasy, for a considerable time, he was unable to utter any of the letters of the alphabet to offer the Lord suitable prayers. So this is the general reaction when one receives the direct audience of the Lord. He becomes completely stunned in ecstasy, and it's difficult for him to offer prayers in that condition. All the letters of the alphabet and the words constructed by those letters are meant for offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maharaj Chitraketu had the opportunity to offer prayers to the Lord by composing nice verses from the letters of the alphabet. But because of his ecstasy, for considerable time, he could not join those letters to offer prayers to the Lord. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, idam hi pumsas tabasa shutasya va svishtasya suktasya cha bodhi datthayo avichuttortha kavibir nirupito yad uttama shloka gnanuvarnanam. If one has scientific, philosophical, political, economic, or any other abilities and wants perfection in his knowledge, he should offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by composing first-class poetry or engaging his talents in the service of the Lord. Chitraketu wanted to do this, but he was unable because of loving ecstasy. Therefore, he had to wait for a considerable time before he could offer prayers. If you remember, Dhruva Maharaj also was in such a condition that he could not offer prayers because he was stunned in ecstasy, but I think then the Lord touched him with his hands, and then the prayers start flowing. And he was also just still a child. But because the Lord touched him with his transferal hand, he empowered him to offer nice prayers. Tata samadhaya mano manishaya babasha etat pratilabdha bhak asav niyamya sarvendriya bhaya vartanam jagad gurum satvatha shastra vigraham. Therefore, by controlling his mind with his intelligence and thus restricting his senses from external engagements, he recovers suitable words with which to express his feelings. Thus he began offering prayers to the Lord, who is the personification of the Holy Scriptures, the Sattvata Samhitas, like the Brahma Samhita and the Narada Pancharatra, who is the spiritual master of all. He offered his prayers as follows. One cannot offer prayers to the Lord with mundane words. One must become spiritually advanced by controlling the mind and the senses. Then he can find suitable words to offer in prayers to the Lord. What in the following verse from the Padma Purana, Srila Sanatana Goswami forbids us to sing any song not sung by authorized devotees. Avaishnava Mukhod Girnan Utam Harikatamritam Shravanam Naiva Kartavyam Sarpochishtam Yatapaya. The words and songs of a person not fixed in Vaishnava behavior, not strictly following the rules and regulations and chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, should not be accepted by pure devotees. The words Sattvata Shastra Vigraham indicate that the Satchit Ananda, body of the Lord, can never be accepted to be made of Maya. Devotees do not offer prayers to the Lord in an imaginary form. The existence of the Lord's form is supported by all Vedic literature. So the sarpa means, snake. So the prayer which is, spoken by person who is not pure, who is a materialist, it's contaminated as the milk becomes contaminated by when it's being touched by a snake. It becomes contaminated by venom of the snake. So that's why even if you have prayer that is bona fide, but it's sang by Bollywood actors or other persons of not very exemplary character, it should not be heard because it can be contaminating influence there. So we want to hear pure prayers, bona fide prayers from the pure source, from the pure devotees. Chitraketu regained his speech by the mercy of the Lord had a form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, which is described in the Sarvada scriptures. This statement negates the idea that the Lord has a form of Maya as described in the Jnana scriptures. So he starts offering prayers now. Chitraketu Vacha, Ajita Jitta Sama Mahatibi, Sadubir Bhavan, Jitatmabir Bhavata, Viditaste Picha Bhajatam, Akamatmanam, Ya Atmado Tikarunaha. Chitraketu said, "Oh, unconquerable Lord, although you cannot be conquered by anyone, you are certainly conquered by devotees who have control of the mind and senses. They can keep you under their control because you are causelessly merciful to devotees who desire no material profit from you. Indeed, you give yourself to them, and because of this, you also have full control over your devotees." So conquered by the devotees who have control of the mind and the senses. So we can, by logic, infer that Lord cannot be conquered by those devotees who do not have control of the mind and the senses. So we might be devotees trying to practice devotional service, but unless our mind and senses are under control, the Lord is not conquered. So we need to come to the stage or level where our mind and senses are controlled in order for Lord to be conquered. The Lord and devotees both conquer. The Lord is conquered by the devotees, and the devotees are conquered by the Lord. Because of being conquered by one another, they both derive transcendental bliss from their relationship. The highest perfection of this mutual conquering is exhibited by Krishna and the gopis. The gopis conquered Krishna, and Krishna conquered the gopis. Thus, whenever Krishna played his flute, he conquered the minds of the gopis, and without seeing the gopis, Krishna would not be happy. Other transcendentalists, such as Jnanis and Yogis, cannot conquer the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only pure devotees can conquer him. Pure devotees are described as samamati, which means that they never deviate from devotional service under any circumstances. It is not the devotees worship the Supreme Lord only when happy. They worship him even in distress. Happiness and distress do not hamper the process of devotional service. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam says the devotional service is haitukya pratihata, unmotivated and uninterrupted. When a devotee offers devotional service to the Lord without any motive, anyabhilashita shunyam, his service cannot be hampered by any material condition, apratihata. Thus, a devotee who offers service in all conditions of life can conquer the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A special distinction between devotees and the other transcendentalists, namely the Jnanis and Yogis, is that Jnanis and Yogis artificially try to become one with the Supreme, whereas devotees never aspire for such an impossible accomplishment. Devotees know that their position is to be eternally servants of the Supreme Lord and never to be one with Him. Therefore, they are called Samati or Jitatma. They detest oneness with the Supreme. They have no lasting desires for oneness. Instead, their desire is to be freed from all material hankering. Therefore, they are called Nishkama, desireless. A living entity cannot exist without desires, but desires that can never be fulfilled are called Kama, lusty desires. Kama is Staira Hrita Jnana. Because of lusty desires, non-devotees are deprived of their intelligence. Thus, they are unable to conquer the Supreme Lord, whereas devotees, being freed from such unreasonable desires, can conquer the Lord. Such devotees are also conquered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because they are pure, being free from all material desires, they fully surrender to the Supreme Lord. And therefore the Lord conquers them. Such devotees never aspire for liberation. They simply desire to serve the lotus feet of the Lord. Because they serve the Lord without desires for remuneration, they can conquer the mercy of the Lord. The Lord is by nature very merciful, and when He sees that His servant is working without desires for material profit, naturally He is conquered. Devotees are always engaged in service. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor vajansi vaikunta guna nuvarnane. All the activities of their senses engage in the service of the Lord. Because of such devotion, the Lord gives Himself to His devotees as if they could use Him for any purpose they might desire. Of course, devotees have no purpose other than to serve. When a devotee fully surrenders, he has no aspiration for material profit. The Lord certainly gives him all opportunities for service. This is the position of the Lord when conquered by His devotees. So Prabhupada here is very elaborately explaining the sweet, mutual, loving relationship between the Lord and His pure devotees. And in this way, trying to inspire us to also become such pure devotees and enjoy the similar reciprocal loving relationship with the Lord. And he gave the example of the gopis as the topmost example of selfless love and service, to which Lord say, I cannot repay you, na pareham, I have nothing to repay you for your selfless love. So once our service and bhakti becomes so selfless, then the Lord will be conquered or purchased, as they say. So I think I'll have to skip this one in order to go to the next. Let me see how long we're going today. Oh, we're going until the 40, number 40, but number 40. Okay, then I can read Vishnu Chakra Thakur. The Lord and the devotees both drown in an ocean of blissful rasa, attained by being controlled by each other through bhakti. In this way, Chitraketu praised the Lord. O unconquered Lord, you are not conquered by jnanis and yogis, but you are conquered by devotees and are made dependent on devotees who are equal in their happiness and suffering, and who have controlled the mind, controlled karma, which is the nature of the mind. See, the lust or karma is the nature of the mind. So in order to subdue that karma, one needs to subdue or control the mind. Thus, they are without material desires in their worship. This is a cause of conquering you. These devotees are conquered by you because you give yourself to those who worship without material desires. Those who worship with the material desires, they're not pure devotees. They're doing the trade business with the Lord. They want something in return for their service. So it's not pure bhakti. If you serve me alone and do not request liberation or anything else from me, serve me day and night, you make me a debtor. The Lord gives himself to those persons. This means that the Lord gives them objects for the eye, ear, and nose, such as his beauty, the sound of his voice, and his fragrance. So this is the reward of unmotivated devotees. The cause of conquering them is that you give yourself. The word sadhubi should not be taken to mean jnanis, since the words bhajatam akamatmanam are used later in the verse. The jnanis worship the Lord at the stage of sadhana, but with desire for liberation. The word bhajatam is in the present tense. The jnanis are not without desire, since they desire to destroy their suffering. So there are many jnanis actually who do some puja and worship of Krishna in Vrindavan. You can see them, they can even chant Mahamantra, but their aim, their goal is to merge with the Lord or get something from him. So it's not really bhakti, it's just a semblance of bhakti. Tava vibhava kalu bhagavan jagadudhaya stiti layadini vishvastrijaste amshamshas tatramrisha spardhanti prithag abhimatya. My dear Lord, this cosmic manifestation and its creation, maintenance and annihilation are all but your opulences. Since Lord Brahma and the other creators are nothing but small portions of you, their partial power to create does not make them God, Ishvara. Their consciousness of themselves as separate lords is therefore merely false prestige. It is not valid. Purport: a devotee who has fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord knows very well that the creative energy of the living entities, from Lord Brahma down to the small ant, exists because the living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Mama Ivamshu Jiva Loki Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. The living entities are nothing but very small portions of the Supreme Spirit, like sparks of a fire. Because they are parts of the Supreme, they have a creative quality in a very minute quantity. The so-called scientists of the modern materialistic world are proud because they have created modern facilities like great airplanes, but the credit for creating the airplanes should go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not to the scientists who have invented or created the so-called wonderful products. The first consideration is the intelligence of the scientist. One must be elevated by the dictation of the Supreme Lord, who says in Bhagavad Gita, Madas Mritir Jnanam Apohanam Cha. From me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So all so-called great, theories, there should be, that some scientists came up with, if they are really, true and correct, they should be credited to the Lord who gave them inspiration to come up with these theories. Of course, there are many speculative theories, and it's just their mind. But sometimes, something very creative comes and it manifests in some useful way, like these airplanes and whatever modern technology is. It's useful. So intelligence is given by the Lord. It's not that some scientist really has that power to invent these things. Because the Supreme Lord, a super soul, sits within the core of every living entity's heart. The dictation by which one advances in scientific knowledge or creative faculties comes from him. So now we are enjoying the fruit of this advancement in technology. Just 10 or 15 years ago, you would have not imagined that we could have a class like this on this Zoom platform with sitting in different parts of the world and talking, having a class. But Krishna inspired some people to make this possible. So some good in the Kali Yuga also is there. Furthermore, the ingredients to manufacture wonderful machines like airplanes are also supplied by the Lord, not by the scientists. Just imagine if the airplane, well, Prabhupada went with the boat to America, but if the airplane was not invented, how could have he traveled all over the world and spread Krishna consciousness? If the airplanes were not there, it was just, if it were just ships and boats, definitely Krishna consciousness would have not spread. Many of us would just stay in the place where we were born and we would be stuck for life there. And it used to be like this in the previous centuries, just 100 years ago. You would just stay where you are or travel a little bit, 100 kilometers up and down. But nowadays, people are changing continents, countries, going here and there. And it's all due to these modern inventions. Before the airplane was created, its ingredients already existed, having been caused by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when the manifested creation of the airplane is ruined, the remaining debris is a problem for the so-called creators. Another example is that the West is creating many automobiles. The ingredients for these cars are supplied, of course, by the Supreme Lord, and the intelligence for the so-called creation is also supplied by the Lord. Ultimately, when the cars are demolished, the so-called creators are faced with the problem of what to do with their ingredients. The actual creator, the original creator, is the personality of Godhead. Only in the interim does someone create something with intelligence supplied by the Lord, and later the creation again becomes a problem. Therefore, the so-called creator is not to be credited with the act of creation. The only credit goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is rightly stated herein that the credit for all the opulence of creation, maintenance, and annihilation belongs to the Supreme Lord, not to the living entities. So we can say that these technological innovations played some part in spreading Krishna consciousness, and they still can be very useful. But material civilization may come to an end sooner or later, and again, we can be back to the Stone Age with a very, very simple living facilities. But at least Krishna consciousness was spread, and we have at least Prabhupada's books, hard copies. So one of my friend, he was expecting the doomsday, the end of the world. So he was thinking, oh, I will put all Prabhupada's books and all Acharya's books on some hard drives, and I'll dig them somewhere in the ground, and in this way we'll be saved if the end of the world comes and everything is destroyed. But then, if the hard drive is there and there are no more computers, what is going to be use of it? Anyway, let us not speculate about the end of the world. It will happen whatever Krishna wants. So having explained the mutual control that the Lord and devotee have over each other, Chitraketu now explains the powers of the Lord in 3 verses. Vibhava means greatness. Creation and destructions are your greatness. But we see that Brahma and others create the universe. Those create are only portions of you. But Brahma and Shiva are devotees. They compete in establishing the lordship of their masters. That competition is useless because they identify with a particular body. I'm Brahma, I'm Shiva, I'm the sun god. Sometimes some demigods, like get the illusion that they are actually the doer, like Indra had and Lord Brahma during Brahma Mohana Lila and things like that. But these are temporary passages. Mostly they are aware that the Vishnu is the supreme and they are his servants. Paramanu Parama Mahatos Tvam Adyanantara Vartitraya Vidura Adhavante Picha Satvanam Yadruvam Tad Evantarale Pi. You exist in the beginning, middle, and end of everything, from the most minute particle of the cosmic manifestation, the atom, to the gigantic universes and total material energy. Nonetheless, you are eternal, having no beginning, end, or middle. You are perceived to exist in these three phases, and thus you are permanent. When the cosmic manifestation does not exist, you exist as the original potency. The Brahma Samhita says, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Nava Yovanam Cha Vedeshu Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhaktav Govindam Adi Purusham Tam Aham Bhajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning, although expanding into unlimited forms, still the same original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord cannot be understood, even the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no cause, for he is the cause of everything. The Lord is beyond the workings of cause and effect. He is eternally existing. In other words, the Brahma Samhita says, Adantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam. The Lord exists within the gigantic universe and within the atom. The descent of the Lord into the atom and the universe indicates that without his presence, nothing could factually exist. Scientists say that water is a combination of hydrogen and oxygen, but when they see a vast ocean, they're puzzled about where such a quantity of hydrogen and oxygen could have come from. They think that everything evolved from chemicals, but where did the chemicals come from? That they do not know. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes, he can produce immense quantities of chemicals to create a situation for chemical evolution. We actually see that the chemicals are produced from living entities. For example, a lemon tree produces many tons of citric acid. The citric acid is not the cause of the tree, rather the tree is the cause of the acid. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of everything. He is the cause of the tree that produces the citric acid. Bijaman sarva bhutanam. Devotees can see that the original potencies causing the cosmic manifestation are not in chemicals, but in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for he is the cause of the chemicals. So Krishna is sarva karana karanam, the cause of all causes, and nothing can exist without him. It's, if you just try thinking about that fact that, without him, there would be nothing, no us, no world, nothing would be there. He's the basis and essence of everything. And then still there are some ignorant atheists who claim there is no God, but it's completely contrary to any logic. But because they're envious, they think in this way. The Krishna deludes them through his Mahamaya. Everything is caused or manifested by the energy of the Supreme Lord. And when everything is annihilated or dissolved, the original potency enters the body of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, this verse says, Adavante picha sattvanam ya dhruvam tat evantaralepi. The word dhruva means permanent. The permanent reality is Krishna. not this cosmic manifestation. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Aham Adir Hidevanam, and Mata Sarvam Pravartate. Krishna is the original cause of everything. Arjuna recognized Lord Shri Krishna as the original person, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. And the Brahma Samhita describes him as the original person, Govindam Adi Purusham. He is the cause of all causes, whether at the beginning, at the end, or in the middle. And Vishwanath, you are the creator, the real permanent form. You are the first cause, most subtle, Paramanu, and the final great effect, Parama Mahato. You exist in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, but you're devoid of beginning, middle, and end because you are eternal. You're steady as the cause of all effects, Satvanam, in the beginning and the middle, like gold in relation to gold ornaments. Therefore, you are the cause of all things, the permanent object, whereas everything else is a product and therefore a temporary object. So Chitraketu, he became completely enlightened by the realization and darshan of the Lord. And then he perceives that the Lord is the cause of everything, that he is all-pervading, that he is present in everything, that nothing can exist without him. And he's stunned with that realization, and he is expressing that realization through his prayers, that are philosophical, but they're a product of his realization, which is a result of his direct perception. Once one sees the Lord, he knows everything. He sees the material world, material energy, and the Lord, and their mutual relationship and connection. 37. Chithihadibir esha kilavritha saptabir dasha gunotarair andakosha yatra patatyanu kalpaha sahandakoti kotibistat ananta. Every universe is covered by 7 layers: earth, water, fire, air, sky, and a total energy in false ego, each 10 times greater than the previous one. There are innumerable universes besides this one, and although they are unlimitedly large, they move about like atoms in you. Therefore, you are called unlimited, Ananta. Yeah, for the Lord, the universe is like a mustard seed. Even if the whole universe is lost, there's no loss because there are unlimited other universes there. Brahma Samhita says, Yasaika Nishvasita Kalam Tavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagad Andanatha Vishnu Mahan Saiha Yasya Kala Vishesho Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. The original material creation is Mahavishnu, who lies in the causal ocean. While he sleeps in that ocean, millions of universes are generated as he exhales, and they are all annihilated when he inhales. This Mahavishnu is a plenary portion of a portion of Vishnu Govinda. The word Kala refers to a plenary portion of a plenary portion. From Krishna or Govinda comes Balaram, from Balaram comes Sankarshan, from Sankarshan Narayan, from Narayan the second Sankarshan, from the second Sankarshan Mahavishnu, from Mahavishnu Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and from Garbhodakashaya Vishnu Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. Kshirodakashaya Vishnu controls every universe. This gives an idea of the meaning of Ananta, unlimited. What is to be said of the unlimited potency and existence of the Lord? This verse describes the coverings of the universe. Saptabhi dasha gunotarair andakosha. The first covering is earth, the second is water, third is fire, fourth is air, fifth is sky, sixth is total material energy, and the seventh is the false ego. Begin with the covering of earth. Each covering is 10 times greater than the previous one. Thus, we can only imagine how great each universe is and there are many millions of universes. If you remember, when we were doing the fifth canto, those who were there, we had this graphical presentation of the universe, and these layers around, they're much bigger than the universe itself, because they're 10 times greater from each other. So the universe inside is just like a small dot, and then you have circles of layers of different material elements. So these coverings of the universe are very thick. That's why it's and the one who wants to get liberated, to get out of the material universe, he needs to pierce to all these coverings of the universe. Tava bahunai tena kim yatena tavarjuna vishtabhyaha midam kritsnam kamshanastito jagat. But what need is there, Arjuna, of all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. The entire material world manifests only 1/4 of the Supreme Lord's energy. Therefore, he is called Ananta. The Lord has been... Yes, Mataji.
How to understand that we say the spiritual world is unlimited, and then also material world is unlimited, but here Srila Prabhupada give the purport 1/4 material world.
Yeah, this is 1/4. I read, I think, explanation of Vishnacharya Thakur regarding these 3/4 and 1/4. By the moment, I cannot remember how he explained, because it's 3/4 of unlimited and 1/4 of unlimited is again unlimited. But he gave explanation, Vishnacharya Thakur. I would need to look for it, and then I can maybe next class if I find the explanation. At the moment, I cannot really remember how he explained this 3/4 and 1/4. It's
Okay.
Material world is definitely smaller, so perhaps, yeah, I don't want to speculate. Let me try to find that purport. The Lord has been described as existing in all time. Now he's described as existing in all space. The universe is surrounded by the 7 layers of earth, water, fire, ether, ankara, mat, tattva, and prakriti. Each 10 times thicker than the previous layer, the universe moves about in you. Therefore, you are unlimited.
So, one small question.
Yes, Prabhu.
It's mentioned in the purport that millions of universes are generated as he exhales. My understanding is even during this exhalation, actually the universes are coming out from the pores of his body, right? Not from the exhalation of air from the nose, right?
Yeah, I had also that impression, but you would need really to look for reference. Yeah, not only through the mouth, but also from the pores of his body. And then it's not connected to inhalation, exhalation, if it's coming to the pores. So yeah, it's a kind of technical thing. We would need to look exactly, but I don't think makes much difference whether they're only coming through exhalation or both through to the pores and during the exhalation. But the point is being made that the lifespan of our universe is just his one breath. For him, it's so short amount of time. It's insignificant. So all the life in that one universe, which is millions of years, is for him, it's a blink of an eye. And we take this material world so seriously. And our short life, which is millions of times shorter than that, than the duration of the universe, we also take very seriously. But it's just a speck in the great ocean of eternity. Vishayatrisho narapashavo ya upasate vibhutirna paramam tvam tesham ashisha isha tadano vinashyanti yatharajakulam. O Lord, O Supreme, unintelligent persons who thirst for sense enjoyment and who worship various demigods are no better than animals in the human form of life. Because of their animalistic propensities, they fail to worship your Lordship, and instead they worship the insignificant demigods for but small sparks of your glory. With the destruction of the entire universe, including the demigods, the benedictions received from the demigods also vanish, just like the nobility when the king is no longer in power. If it actually think how big the world is and how small we are, it's how insignificant we are. It's humbling. I think even once Prabhupada was explaining, saying in this material world there are so many universes, and then in this one universe there's so many planets and stars, and then among so many planets there is one small planet called Earth, and then on this Earth there's so many continents, and on this continent there's one continent amongst many continents, and there are many countries there, and that one country there's so many villages and towns, and in this one town there is one, and because he was speaking to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he said there's one Tamal Krishna who thinks, oh, I'm very important. He just wanted to illustrate how we think that we are very important, although we are so insignificant, just looking at the larger picture of the world. Even Lord Brahma, he felt so insignificant when the Lord summoned all other Brahmas from bigger universes with the more heads. Lord Brahma has only 4 heads. So when he saw other Brahmas with 100 heads and thousands heads, he became very humble. He felt like an ant amongst the elephants. And we are so much smaller than Lord Brahma. Bhagavad Gita says, Kamaistai Hrita Jnana Prapadante Devata. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto the demigods. Similarly, this verse condemns worship of the demigods. We may show our respect to the demigods, but the demigods are not worshipable. Just today I was in Jagannath Mandir this morning, and I noticed there's the Shiva Linga we have, and the puja paraphernalia was ready there, because on every Monday I think they do big Shiva Linga puja there and offer boga, and they have a feast. So I'm not sure what to think. I mean, Lord Shiva is respected as the Vaishnava, but still Prabhupada says here the demigods are not worshipable. So I guess it would depend on the consciousness of the worshippers, why they're worshiping Lord Shiva, and for which purpose and how they worship him. But the fact is that the Shiva puja was going on there. And then we have a Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Simantini Devi temple there in Rajapur. And one devotee was telling that he was asking me, Simantini Devi, kiache, who is this Simantini Devi? So I had to explain to him it's actually Mahamaya energy of the Lord, but because she's together with the Lord Gauranga, she can be worshipped. Lord and his energies can be worshipped. So the puja is done to Lord Gauranga, and then the items are offered to Simantini Devi. But in case of Shiva Linga Puja, I'm not sure what you worship first there. I didn't stay to look at the puja. The intelligence of those who worship the demigods is lost, Krita Jnana, because these worshippers do not know that when the entire material cosmic manifestation is annihilated, the demigods, who are the departmental heads of that manifestation, will be vanquished. When the demigods are vanquished, the benedictions given by the demigods to unintelligent men will also be vanquished. Therefore, devotees should not hanker to obtain material opulence by worshipping the demigods, but should engage in the service of the Lord, who will satisfy all his desires. Hakama sarva kamuva moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogina yajita purusham param. Whether full of material desires, free from all material desires, or desire liberation, a person who has broader intelligence must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the personality of Godhead. This is the duty of a perfect human being, one who has the shape of a human being, but whose actions are nothing but those of an animal, is called Narapashu or Vipadapashu, a two-legged animal. A human being who is not interested in Krishna consciousness is condemned herewith as Narapashu. So human animal, it's a kind of contradictory term. It's a human, it's a form of a human, but his consciousness is the consciousness of an animal, because he is interested only in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So that's why he's not better than an animal. Although he has a human form, he's not utilizing that form for self-realization.
Abu,
Yes.
in Canto 3, chapter 26, and there is one purpose. Srila Prabhupada said, if Kapila Dev explained the material nature, and Srila Prabhupada said, if one wants to get rid of this false ego, he should worship Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva is the presiding deity of false ego. Yeah, so I think maybe we can.
Yeah. Well, each material element has its own presiding deity. So the Lord Shiva is the presiding deity of an ego, but that particular injunction there, I think it's not meant exclusive. It's not meant for devotees. It's meant for those transcendentalists who do different sort of indirect self-realization process on the jnana part or the yoga part. Those who perform mixed devotional service, jnana mishra bhakti or yoga mishra bhakti, they will undertake this worship of Lord Shiva in order to overcome the false ego. But we, as the devotees of Krishna, it's completely enough. You just worship Krishna, and then he will take care of all these material elements that you need to purify it. We are not going into these details, because we understand that just by worshiping Krishna, everything is accomplished. So yeah, in different cantos, Shukadev Goswami, he's he has quite wide range of audience assembled there. So sometimes he speaks something that is related to the Gyanis present in an audience where the Maharaj Parishit was. They also came, the Gyanis, yogis, and devotees. Also the transcendentalists were present there. So Sukadeva Goswami sometimes is addressing them also and gives the process which is not direct process. And then Srila Prabhupada comments on that and expands on that. But at the end, when we come to the 10th canto, Srila Goswami is clear that worship of the Krishna is the highest, and there is no need to worship anybody else for this purpose. Krishna and his pure devotees. Is that okay, Mataji, or we can look even at that shloka? You said which one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Canto
3
3 and chapter 26, maybe
26.
verse 20. Yeah.
26 and verse 20.
Verse 20, maybe also 26.
Okay, 26. Let me look quickly. Okay, here. Yeah. I think in the material world, we are producing so many things, and this is called advancement of civilization, but factually, the advancement of civilization is manifestation of false ego. But false ego, by false ego, all material things are produced as objects, as enjoyment. One has to cease increasing artificial necessities. I don't see any mention of Lord Shiva here. Anyway, yeah, I don't see in the purport any mention of Lord Shiva, neither in the verse. Ahankara of false ego is transformed into the demigods, the controlling directors of material affairs. Anyway, yeah, I don't see it here, but I don't think it's so important. I think we already explained that. So let us continue with the. Did I read this Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur commentary? After glorifying the Lord, the devotees glorified. But first, the non-devotee is criticized. Vibhuti means the devatas. They worship the devatas, not you. After the destruction of the devatas, their blessings also disappear. When the family of a king disappears, the blessings given by the family to the servants also disappears. This is meaning that whatever somebody, the demigod, he doesn't live forever. So when he gives some blessings, it can last for some generations until that demigod is in position. As soon as the demigod is out of his position and somebody else comes to his position, the blessings are not valid anymore. And the family again has to do the puja and please the particular demigod in order to get the blessings. So it's temporary worship with a very temporary result. And it's not recommended for those who are sumedasa, who are intelligent. Only worship of Krishna or Vishnu is recommended. Because all the demigods, they're parts and parcels of him, and they'll be automatically satisfied. So there is no need to worship the demigods separately. And it's also, nama parad to think the demigods are independent lords. Otherwise, why would you worship them if you would be convinced that they are just servants of the Supreme Lord? You could have, give them respect as the servants of the Lord, but you would not worship them. You would worship them only if you think that they have some independent power and they can give you something that you want, and that Krishna cannot give you. Again, today when I was passing, when I was going to Rajapur, I went by walking by the bank of Jalangi, and then I went next to one Durga temple, and there were dozens of young people dressed in short gamshas, carrying a stick, and there was a terrible loud music on a huge loudspeakers, And when I looked inside in the temple, it was a Durga Devi. So they were dancing around, and it was a little ghostly sort of worship. And the music was so loud that it could be heard for kilometers. Some Durga Bollywood bhajan. And that was their worship, and they were on that level. So they, and obviously they want something from Durga. And this, I guess, normal people who take some sort of, a vow for a week or two. They dress like this in a sort of gamsha, deer skin or whatever, and take some stick, and they roam around in groups. Sometimes you see them in a train. In South India, you see the same ones in a black. Here in Bengal, they're in the red. The Durga worshippers in South India, they worship another sort of demigod. I forgot the name, but they dress in black. So this is a kind of temporary fad. So people take vacation from the job or the school. They dress like this, and for a week or two they go in groups and do some sort of worship. But we know that it's more or less useless from the spiritual perspective of view. Maybe they get some blessings of Durga and get some enjoyment. I don't know. Okay, a little more is left. Kamadiyas Tvairachita Na Paramarohanti Yatha Karamba Bijani Gyanatatmanya Guna Maye Guna Ganatosya Dvandvajalani. O Supreme Lord, if persons obsessed with material desires or sense gratification through material opulence worship you, who are the source of all knowledge and who are transcendental to material qualities, they are not subject to material rebirth. Just as sterilized or fried seeds do not produce plants. Living entities are subjected to the repetition of birth and death because they are conditioned by material nature. But since you are transcendental, one who is inclined to associate with you in transcendence escapes the conditions of material nature. So by worshipping of the Supreme Lord, our karmas, they're completely sterilized, they're destroyed. All sinful reactions, everything is burned, and it's not able to produce any more karma, any more fruitive activities and results. Purport. This confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, wherein the Lord says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vedi tatvata tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. If one simply engages in Krishna consciousness to understand Krishna, he surely becomes immune to the process of repeated birth and death. As clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti. Such a person, simply by engaging in Krishna consciousness or understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, becomes quite fit to return home back to Godhead. Even those who are obsessed with material desires may also come to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead so steadily that they go back to Godhead. The fact is that if one comes to Krishna consciousness, although he may have many material desires, he becomes increasingly attracted to the lotus feet of Krishna through associating with the Supreme Lord by chanting his holy name. The Supreme Lord and his holy name are identical. Thus he becomes uninterested in attachment to material enjoyment. The perfection of life is to be uninterested in material enjoyment and interested in Krishna. If one comes to Krishna consciousness somehow or other, even for material gain, the result is that he will be liberated. Kamat Veshat Bhayat Snehat. Whether for the satisfaction of material desires, because of the influence of envy, because of fear, because of affection, or because of any other reason, if one comes to Krishna, his life is successful. So this verse, Kamadvesha Bhas Nehad, is I think Narada Muni speaking to Maharaj Yudhishthira, describing how gopis, they became absorbed in Krishna through kama, transcendental kama. And then Dveshad, somebody became absorbed in thoughts of Krishna through Dvesha, through hatred. Who was that? It was Shishupal, I think. And then Bhayat, Kamsa, he became absorbed in Krishna through Bhaya or fear. And general devotees, they become absorbed through following the process of bhakti. But somehow or other, one should absorb his mind in Krishna. Mana Krishna Niveshayat. And generally, the strong feelings are something that is very helpful to absorb the mind in a particular object. The example is given of what is it? The worm who meditates out of fear on what is it? The wasp who comes to eat it, and then in the next life that worm becomes a wasp because of strong absorption of the mind in the form of the wasp, and it was due to fear. And we have also experienced that when
Butterfly?
Sorry, Manaji?
Butterfly?
Can you repeat slowly? I cannot hear properly.
You mean the insect butterfly?
Oh, yeah, could be the butterfly also. Yeah, I was thinking wasp, but it could be the butterfly also.
Here he is. It is a worm, but he meditate the butterfly. So next time he becomes butterfly.
Yeah, that's one example. I think there is also another example of a wasp, who comes to eat it, and because of strong meditation out of fear. The point is that the emotional component, when the emotional component is there, the mind becomes much easier absorbed in certain object. For example, if I'm afraid of, very much afraid, I have some snakeophobia, I'm afraid of snakes, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, I don't want to see snake anywhere, and everywhere I go outside, I look on the road, is there a snake? So in this way, out of fear, I'm meditating on snakes, and then for sure the snake will jump in front of me because I attracted by my fear. or if this is natural in material world, one who has strong attraction to opposite sex or whatever, he has strong lust, and he sees a beautiful woman or man, and he becomes very much absorbed in that form because of that strong emotion of material emotion. So if we could also somehow bring some emotion in our devotional practice and spiritual practice, do our devotional service with emotional component, then it will be much more easier to absorb the mind in Krishna. So do chanting with some sort of emotional feeling for Krishna, whatever we have to find out what is inspiring for us. But it shouldn't be just mindless, mechanical, boring, and dry chanting. It should be done with some sort of affection for the Lord. So we want positive emotions. We don't want fear or hatred like Kamsa and Shishupal, or we don't want also lust like Kubja. She had some sort of almost material sort of lust that she was attracted to Krishna, but it purified her. Even in those cases when the emotions are negative, because one absorbs his mind in Krishna, that absorption is so purifying that eventually that person achieves success. So this was the purport, the meaning of that verse, Kamadvesha Dvaya Snehat. Somehow or other, one should absorb his mind in Krishna. Or if you don't have really any emotion, then just, follow the laws and regulations. That's called Vaidhi Bhakti. And that's absolutely necessary at the beginning. But later, one's supposed to come to the stage of, we call it Raga Nuga Bhakti. That means that you have natural lobha, you have yearning or greed for Krishna. And then you don't follow just because of rules or regulations, but you follow because of that spiritual greed. It's much more powerful force than just follow out of fear, out of duty. So the emotion is more powerful than the duty. But the duty is also necessary, especially in the beginning. Okay, just I think this one and one more. Let me see 40 should be the last one. This verse shows the excellence of the devotee by Kaimutika Nyaya. If desires for kingdom or other things are placed in you, then they will not result in getting another birth, just as roasted seeds do not sprout. This is because those objects take on good qualities. But if the desires are placed elsewhere in other objects of worship, they sprout up. They're not like roasted seeds. You have pure spiritual knowledge in Atmani, devoid of material objects. Just as an object which falls in a well of juice becomes juicy, when those material desires enter you, they become spiritual. How then can they be a cause of continued samsara? The nets of duality arising from the gunas are caused by samsara. This is a nice analogy. The objects which falls in a well of juice becomes juice itself, because it's immersed in a juice. So even if the object is impure, it becomes juicy. Meaning even if we are impure at the present state, if somehow or other we absorb our mind in Krishna, we'll become pure and purified. Jitam ajita tada bhavata yadaha bhagavatam dharmam anavadyam nishkinchana ye munaya atmaramayam upasate apavargaya. The unconquerable one. When you spoke about Bhagavad Dharma, which is the uncontaminated religious system for achieving the shelter of your lotus feet, that was your victory. Persons who have no material desires, like the Kumaras, or self-satisfied sages, worship you to be liberated from material contamination. In other words, they accept the process of Bhagavad Dharma to achieve shelter of your lotus feet. As stated by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dinavritam Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Rutama. One should render transfer loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desires for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. This is called pure devotional service. The Narada Pancharatra also says, Sarvopade vinir muktam tat paratvena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhakti uchate. One should be free from all material designations and cleansed of all material contamination. He should be restored to his pure identity, in which he engages his senses in the service of the proprietor of the senses. This is called devotional service. This is also called Bhagavad Dharma. Without material aspirations, one should simply serve Krishna, as advised in Bhagavad Gita, Narada Pancharatra, in Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavad Dharma is the process of religion enunciated by pure devotees, direct representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like Narada, Shukadeva Goswami, and their humble servants in the disciplic succession. By understanding Bhagavad Dharma, one immediately becomes free from material contamination, living entities who are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are loitering in this material world suffering. When they are instructed by the Lord Himself about Bhagavad Dharma and they adopt it, that is the victory for the Lord. For He then reclaims these fallen souls. A devotee following principles of Bhagavad Dharma feels very much obliged to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can understand the difference between life without Bhagavad Dharma and life with Bhagavad Dharma. And thus he ever remains obliged to the Lord. Taking to the Krishna consciousness and bringing fallen souls to Krishna consciousness is victory for Lord Krishna. Savai pumsam parao dharmo yato bhakti radokshaji ahaitukya pratihata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which man can attain the loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is the pure transcendental process of religion. So when Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharma Parityaja, abandon all varieties of religion, he doesn't mean abandon Bhagavad Dharma. He means abandon all this sort of different sort of varnashrama dharmas, Kshatriya Dharma, Brahmana Dharma, Vaishya Dharma, Shuddha Dharma, Stri Dharma. This is the final instruction, to abandon different duties according to one's social position in the varnashrama society in order to completely accept pure devotional service of Bhagavad Dharma, which is not to be abandoned at any point of time. But in the beginning, in the conditioned state of life, one needs the safety net of varnashrama dharma in order to be able to practice Bhagavad Dharma devotional service, because varnashrama dharma gives support, gives the structure in which you can safely engage gradually in devotional service, gives you protection, because there are certain rules and regulations which are favorable for your physiological nature, and you follow them and your mind is peaceful, and then you can gradually engage in devotional service. So that's why both dharmas are necessary in the conditioned stage. That's why Grihastha devotees, they practice their Grihastha Dharma, and at the same time they practice Bhagavad Dharma. And gradually, as they make more advancement, the percentage of Varnashrama Dharma is decreasing and the percentage of Bhagavad Dharma is increasing. And when they come to the advanced stage, they can completely abandon especially when they renounce Grihastha Ashram and take Vanaprastha and Sannyas, they can completely neglect Varnashrama Dharma duties and fully engage in devotional service. So Varnashrama Dharma is material Dharma, while Bhagavad Dharma is purely spiritual. It's devotional. It's not different from devotional service. Okay, just let's read the last commentary of Vishnu Thakur. If this is the excellence of bhakti with material desires because of your power, then how much more bhakti without material desires will yield? However, that this Nishkama Bhakti is instigated by you. Your victory over your devotees who are Nishkama, mentioned in the verse 34, is caused by you who are so merciful and desire to be controlled by your devotee. That is your special victory. This is explained in this verse on Unconquered Lord. When you spoke about Nishkama, Anavadyam, Dharma of the devotees became indebted to you. You were conquered by devotees through that Nishkama Bhakti, but that Bhakti was spoken by you. That is your good quality. Thus devotees are indebted to you, those who were pure from the beginning, Nishkinchana, as well as those sages, Munaya, who by association with the pure devotees gave up their previous ideas, and some Jivan Muktas, Atmarama, who achieve their position by austerity, follow that Dharma. Or the two words, Munaya and Atma, Rama, can modify Nishkinchana. The pure devotees who continually contemplated you and derive pleasure from you follow this Dharma. Apavargaya here means for that goal to which the four Vargas of Artha, Dharma, Kama, and Moksha are inferior. That means prema, or Apavarga can mean bhakti, as in the prose of the 5th canto. Liberation Apavarga, whose essential nature is unmotivated bhakti, yoga, the Lord full of qualities, who attracts the minds of all beings, who is not the object of merging, who is not described in material words, who remains beyond destruction of the universe, who is the most excellent Atma, who is the son of Vasudeva, takes place by destruction of the knot of ignorance, which causes various material goals when there is association with the devotees of the Lord. Again, it's more or less the same point that Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, they are inferior to Bhagavad Dharma and can be abandoned at certain point of time. Okay, let's stop here. Is there anything final, any final comment or question? If
Yeah,
not,
Prabhu, I have some
Yes.
questions. Yeah, just now we talk about the Lord Shiva. That is, I find the verse in Canto 3, chapter 26 and verse 21, the last paragraph. Srila Prabhupada's purpose.
okay, verse 21, let me, there are 26, 20,
3, 26,
21.
21, yeah.
Okay, let me quickly, I found it, let me quickly share my screen again. Okay, this is 26, 21.
Last paragraph.
Okay, last paragraph. Okay, in order to get released from the false ego, one has to worship Sankarshan. Okay, not Lord Shiva, it's Sankarshan is Vishnu. Sankarshan is also...
Yeah, he's
okay. Sankarshan is
worships
also
through Lord Shiva.
worship through Lord Shiva. The snakes which cover the body of Lord Shiva are representations of Sankarshan, and Lord Shiva is always absorbed in meditation upon Sankarshan. One who is actually a worshipper of Lord Shiva as a devotee of Sankarshan can be released from false material ego. So basically, one can worship Lord Shiva in this way, but with understanding that he is actually worshiping Sankarshan through Lord Shiva.
Yeah.
So, but it's actually worshipper of Vishnu. Just he's worshiping him through Lord Shiva. There was that Puranic story where when Nrsimhadev Bhakta was caught by some dacoit who wanted him to do Shiva Puja, and that Nrsimhadev Bhakta, he didn't really want to do Shiva Puja because he was exclusive Vishnu Bhakta, Nrsimhadev Bhakta. But because this dacoit, he was standing there with a knife, he was forced to do Shiva Puja, and but he was thinking in his mind, because my life is in danger, I'll worship this Shiva Linga with the meditation that my Lord Nrsimhadev is present in a Shiva Linga. He's present in Lord Shiva. So he was doing the puja like that, and then he pronounced Om Narasimhaya Namaha. And then when the dacoit heard this, he understood that actually he is worshiping Lord Nrsimhadev, he's not worshiping Lord Shiva. So he thought, okay, I'll kill him now. So he raised his sword to cut off the devotee's head. But at that moment, Shiva Linga cracked open, and Lord Nrsimhadev manifested himself from Shiva Linga and he killed the dacoit and all his associates. And in this way, he saved his devotee. So this shows that actually the consciousness with which one worships, even the form of the Lord, is what determines whom you worship. You can worship even Lord Nrsimha in Shiva Linga. So maybe that I mentioned earlier, those in Rajapur devotees, they might be worshiping Krishna through Shiva. I don't know what is their concept. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Another question, Prabhu. Just now you say we have to meditate and assert our emotion. So is it there when our emotion is in a negative point, then we will absorb, we will attract some negative energy?
Yes, negative emotions, negative vibrations, negative energy, and they attract negative energy. So they're very much detrimental to even good material life, or to speak about spiritual life. And then on the other side, positive emotions, they attract, like gratitude. It's said that the gratitude is the most, the best material emotion, although it's still material, but it still attracts some good fortune, and it's a right state of the mind in which you can actually perform spiritual practice. If we are grateful to Krishna that he has given us this opportunity to serve him and approach him and eventually realize him, that's attracting mercy from the Lord, because we are grateful, although it is still material feeling. So in this way, in our devotional service, we can invest some positive emotions, some affection, some gratitude, something that will help our mind flow in a positive direction towards Krishna. Otherwise, if we are just doing things out of fear, and I'm always afraid, if I didn't do this today, so I may get some negative reaction, it's not very inspiring. How long you can be doing things like this out of fear of going to hell. I'm just chanting my rounds not to go to hell. It's not the best meditation. You should have some positive meditation to do something because it's inspiring for us. So gratitude is one of the feelings we could work on developing, which is favorable for our spiritual practice. Is that okay?
Yeah. Sometimes when I think when my feeling is not so positive, I feel very down. So then I find my service always not so good quality.
Then you can consciously change your emotional content, your feelings, by consciously repeating some positive thoughts. They call it affirmations. You can affirm something positive. For example, when you feel angry, and then you become conscious aware that there is some anger. So instead of that, you start affirming, I'm very peaceful, I'm peaceful, or pray to the Lord, please let me be peaceful. So you meditate on a peacefulness as opposed feeling to anger. So in this way, gradually you pacify yourself and you come in a positive state of mind. So it's our mind, and we have a responsibility how to navigate it. So we can either bring it into the negative state through negative feelings, or we can bring it in the positive state through the positive feelings, using these positive affirmations or affirmative prayer. There is something called affirmative prayer. You pray to the Lord in a positive affirmative way. Lord, please let me be grateful. Let me be aspired. I am inspired. I'm grateful. I'm enthusiastic. Things like this. These are thoughts. Otherwise, the negative thoughts will go on. You will always, you know, in your head automatically negative thoughts will go on. You will think, oh, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm frustrated, and this like unspoken prayers, and you attract this sort of emotions and states of mind by repeating, by having these unconscious thoughts. So you can consciously change it by positively affirming some positive emotion. Is that understandable, Mataji? Does it make sense?
Yeah. Thank you very much. And Prabhu, I still have one more question, but not related to this canto. Is it okay?
Yeah, no problem. You can.
Yeah. So, where we can study this Bhagavatam Rita?
Where, you mean a course or a book or what?
Yeah, anything related with this.
Did you read a book? Do you have a book?
No, I'm in China. I cannot find any books.
Oh, you're in China. Well, the PDF is available. I mean, I can send you a PDF. I can even, you know, through the Telegram group. If you just send me a message, I can give you a PDF and you can read it. I'm not aware that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very
just
good.
just send me a message on Telegram, and I'll send you a book. The book is there. There is no problem, and then you just read it. I didn't know that you're in China. I thought you were in Mapper also.
Yeah. So you mean in the Telegram group? I send you the.
Yeah,
You
send me a
have
message.
WhatsApp. You have WhatsApp.
Yeah, WhatsApp also. You can send me the same number that I'm on a Telegram. I mean, I'm posting this invitation, so you can see my number there. Same number, Telegram or WhatsApp, same thing. Yeah. If you just send me a message, I'll send you a book.
Okay.
Okay, thank you all very much. We'll have to stop now here. Vanchakalpatarubhasya kripa sindhu evacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.